Good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, June the 1st of 2023. I'd like to start off by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands of Acadia First Nation, part of Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Can we all rise for the playing of O Canada? Thank you, everyone. Before I get started, I'd like to make mention of the wildfire situation that's happening in the municipality of Argyle, the municipality of Shelburne, the town of Shelburne, and the town of Lockport, Shelburne County, and Barrington. Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone, and hopefully there will be alleviation to the rain situation that's the lack of rain that's been causing all the wildfires that's been happening. Thankfully, the municipality district of Yarmouth has not had that type of issue in the area. But it really hurts me to see all the municipalities and the residents pulling together to help one another. A lot of you know that there's been comfort centers that's been opened up in the municipality of Yarmouth, namely the Yarmouth Fire Hall, for example, that's being run by the Wesleyan Church. Also, all the residents out across the municipality district of Yarmouth, and then frankly across the tri-counties, including municipality district of Digby and the town of Digby, who's reached out for not only helping out with accommodations for people, but also housing their livestock and pets. So that's very heartening to see. Hopefully very soon there'll be the promised rainfall that's been forecast by the weather organizations. That's going to come to fruition tomorrow night. Something else that I should note, there is volunteer fire departments in the municipality district of Yarmouth that's doing canvassing the areas at night, looking out. There was a message that came out last night for looking for volunteers across the municipality district of Yarmouth through the mutual aid society that we all belong to, and I must say that there's been a huge outreach to support the wildfire situation. Actually tonight I'm missing a meeting at the Carlton Fire Hall that they're discussing tonight, not only making provisions for one crew and fire truck, but for many, and I put my name forward for that. And thank you to all the, once again, the residents and the people involved, staff of the municipalities that are involved, the province and the federal government, and all those fire bombers. So I could sit here and talk with hours, but thankfully we live in a close-knit community that certainly reaches out to people in need, and unfortunately we're in a situation where we have the largest forest fire in Nova Scotia's history just on our doorstep. So hopefully that situation will be alleviated soon, and thank you very much everyone once again. Okay, item number 4, approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda as circulated? I do have one addition that I'd like added. It's in regards to the Perrenbaugh graduation. I'd like to add that on item number 9.1.9. So could I have a motion to approve that addition? Moved by Councillor Nick Hilton, seconded by Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham. to add that additional item. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Is there any other additions or deletions? Councillor Hurlbert?
Do we have to add something under in-camera, an additional item? Yes.
Yes, we do.
Public safety? I'll make that, that we add public safety. I don't know what the MGA, Jenny said she'll get it.
All right.
Thanks.
So that would go under item, too many pieces of paper and too many computers on the go. Reports in camera, so that would be item 12.2. So I need a motion to add that in the camera. Okay, moved by Councillor Sherry Hurlbert and seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen to add public security under in camera. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Daniel Allen, seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item number 5, if there's any declarations of conflict of interest, please notify me, step away from the chair, and I'll make sure that your declaration conflict of interest is recorded by Jenny, our recording secretary. Item number 6, approval of the minutes. You all have that in your package. What is council's pleasure? Councillor Nick Hilton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the minutes as presented on the agenda.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 7, presentation from the AIM Network on the asset management. Mr. Matt Delorme. Welcome. All you have to do is step up. There's a red button on that microphone. Just hit that, and I'll turn the microphone on as soon as you're settled. There, it should be working.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds like it's good. Yeah, thank you. So first of all, thank you for your time in having us tonight. For anyone who's not familiar with AIM Network, it's Atlantic Infrastructure Management Network. We are a nonprofit that does training and education as well as technical assistance to municipalities across Atlantic Canada for looking at asset management and long-term service delivery. And this particular program, as we often do, is through is funded through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program, which is funded by Infrastructure Canada. So we're always thankful to them for supporting this type of work to ensure long-term delivery of services across Canada. Then that brings me to the first point here, is I just wanted to bring up why it is that we're getting into doing projects like this. In the past, most municipalities focused on managing assets, so they had pipes and roads and facilities and pumps, and when those broke, they would fix them. That's led us into a place now where we're in an infrastructure crisis in Canada. We have somewhere between 140 and 280 billion dollars worth of infrastructure deficit. That's infrastructure that needs to be replaced and has not yet been funded. That tells you something right there, that the boundaries on that are somewhere between 140 and 280. We're still getting a handle on the problem, and that's why communities across the country are doing this work to collect all of their asset information, start to value it, look at the condition and when they need to replace it. Because what we're trying to do is make sure that we have the services that we've all been able to enjoy up to this point for people going into the future long term. One other piece of that, why now? In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we built a lot of infrastructure in Canada and never really thought about what we were going to do when it hit its end of life. Now's that time. So we're trying to not only figure out how we're going to address that, but how not to make that same mistake in the future and plan better going forward. So it's really about sustainable delivery of services. it starts with an asset management policy. I usually go through this in a fair bit of detail, but I know that you just ratified your policy in November, so you're all quite familiar with what you're doing with it. But mainly what we want to do is use those principles in that policy to guide how you manage assets. And when we work through capital programming, we actually refer back to that when we're doing the workshops with your staff in terms of how we're making the decisions. And I'll talk a bit about how that reflects in your infrastructure planning, because it's quite unique here in the district of Yarmouth from what we're used to. So your main goals and principles in your asset management policy is, one, you're going to base it on service delivery to customers. That's going to be really important when we look at what your capital programming looks like. The holistic approach, we also say that that's big picture thinking. You think about all of the assets at once, not in isolation, because putting capital investment toward one asset class impacts your ability to do it elsewhere. We, of course, the whole point is about having long-term sustainability and resilience, so that we know that we'll be able to provide these services into the future. Continuous improvement. Municipalities are really unique in that you have a huge range of services with a lot of assets over a broad area. It's not like something like a mining operation that they do this stuff really well, but they're very focused on a particular activity. Municipalities also aren't working towards, profitability or the best business case. You're providing services to residents by what residents need and are willing to pay for, and we're willing to support as a society. So why am I saying that? Municipal asset management has only had a lot of energy behind it in the last 7 or 8 years. We don't have all of the solutions that we're going to need in the future. So it's really important to keep on this. This isn't something where you do one project and you're finished, but through this project, we've provided staff with all of the tools and resources that they need to carry on with this. So we're glad that you've made a commitment to support that. And the last thing is building that culture of asset management in the municipality. It's really important because it's not one person's job. It means that everybody who works with or for the municipality is doing it with that eye on long-term delivery of services. So here's a quick snapshot of, we did get all of your inventory collected, processed, and costed. Question that always comes up, yes, we have adjusted the costs for the inflation of the last couple of years. That was thanks to some efforts by the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Everything that we use is provided for free to municipalities, and we actually make it open source and freely accessible. So the Newfoundland and Labrador has adopted this, as well as the tools and processes that we use as a framework for the province. And part of what they supported last year were a bunch of user friendliness updates, as well as a cost update to reflect inflation. So yes, that is in these costs. So there's no water supply system, transportation, you have about $15 million, $26.1 million in wastewater, that's in both treatment and collection, $1.9 million in stormwater, 10.2 in facilities, and about $1.8 million in fleet, for a total of $55 million of infrastructure. Just out of curiosity, is that surprising to anyone, seeing that $55 million number, or is that what you would expect? Just anyone surprised? It's, yeah, that's typically the case. And we find that with residents as well, is that often people don't understand what kind of work it is for the hardworking folks here at the municipality managing this huge amount of infrastructure. Just another quick note here is that we have there, if you were to replace all of this based on just their expected lives, the life of the infrastructure, you'd need about $1.2 million a year. That would work out to about $116 per person currently living in the District of Yarmouth. That's quite good. That is a manageable amount. We see those get a lot higher, particularly in more rural area or urban areas. We also have just a snapshot of the condition of your infrastructure. In the interest of time, I won't go through it in detail. I'll just say that your infrastructure, compared to municipalities across Atlantic Canada, we've worked with over 100 of them, is in really good shape. You guys are in a good position here. There's some aging parts here, sidewalks and trails, and getting into your wastewater system, you're going to see that in your capital programming. We also look at level of service assessment. That says if we fix just the infrastructure that you have right now, are you providing the services that you've targeted to your community? And on a lot of them, the answer was no, because you're looking to increase the level of service that you provide in the District of Yarmouth. And not to go into a huge amount of detail on level of service, but we look at that as like, what's the average condition of your road? How many backups would you see in your sewer system in a year? And where do your active transportation networks connect? Those are all service level decisions. What came out of that discussion is that you need some wastewater treatment plant upgrades because of an excess of stormwater infiltration. You're seeing it pushing close to exceeding limits. Greenhouse gas improvements, that's looking for efficiency, just those tend to pay for themselves, the energy efficiency upgrades. Lots on active transportation and pedestrian infrastructure expansions, facility accessibility assessments as well, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the report that was done with that, and the expansion of recreation and cultural facilities. Normally, I would be talking communities about that aggressive of an increase in level of service when we work with them. However, looking at your 20-year projections just based on a risk assessment of your infrastructure, because it's in relatively good shape, and honestly what this tells me is that your processes for managing infrastructure and budgeting to support it has been working well in the past. And I can see that because there's no spikes of infrastructure needs in the near term. That doesn't mean you don't have to think about things later on, but you're in really good shape. And in fact, because per capita, you're carrying a lower amount of infrastructure, relatively speaking, your average annual investment we would look at would only be about $700,000. Now I have a huge caveat with that. This applies to infrastructure under your policy, which is infrastructure that you own and operate just with the district. You're very unique in that you have a lot of joint service infrastructure that represents a large potential liability, the port, the airport, the waste facility, the maritime center. You have and in fact, Victoria was asking me about this. This is the first time I've ever seen that your joint operation infrastructure actually exceeds your internal infrastructure. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. What that tells me is that you're actually very forward thinking. We go around in municipalities all the time saying you need to work regionally. You have to get it together. It's the only way we're going to survive in Atlantic Canada is by managing infrastructure regionally. So, on one hand, congratulations. On another hand, we have a recommendation for doing some asset management plans on those big facilities because you really need to understand what's coming down the road for you, because that's going to have a lot bigger impact on your long-term planning than your actual infrastructure. Jenny will be providing you with this, this presentation here. We have a list of 5-year critical projects. So one thing, again, I'm just going to point out is a little unique, is that you have a lot more investment going in to level of service projects, things where you're improving the service levels in the community. That's an enviable place to be. Usually we find places have a lot of older sewer and water infrastructure, older facilities that are such a big capital demand for them that we're saying you can't really afford to increase your service levels here. You actually need to consider dropping some of them in order to meet your budgeting. You know, I guess congratulations to you. You can actually look at increasing these service levels, and that's particularly important over what we've seen in the last couple of years, because we're seeing a lot more influx of population into Atlantic Canada, which hasn't been happening. There's actually going to be a point where there's competition for those people coming to support industry and commercial ventures. you're in a good spot where you can actually spend to support that and really support your strategic planning, which we did look over when we were putting this together. So that's why you're seeing a lower amount in projects that are coming from the risk assessment and a higher level going from the level of service assessment. And that's all keeping in line with your strategic vision for your community. Just remember how your strategy falls into your policy, comes down through into these decision-making processes. So the key takeaways from here is that you have a low risk to your infrastructure currently in service, which I can't say it enough. That's an enviable place to be, and it's unusual in Atlantic Canada. Your capital investment planning has been keeping up with the demand on infrastructure, and I can see that because your risk-based demand is lower than that 1.2 million annual average just by the looking at the expected life of infrastructure. Typically what we see is that there's a higher near-term demand because people haven't been keeping up with the replacements. So good job on that. There's a high risk of those unexpected costs with jointly owned or operated assets. If there was one big message I could say is try to work with the organizations that are managing those and get a handle on 20-year projections for those pieces of infrastructure, because that's going to have the biggest impact on your long-term planning. And then the last thing is that we really have a focus on continuing to meet or raise levels of service, which is a good call for the District of Yarmouth here. We've also deferred some fleet upgrades because we were having some flagged as needed toward the end of your 5-year planning. But when we got discussing with your Public Works folks, they felt pretty comfortable that we could kick those into year 6 to 10. You will receive, as the end of this project, as part of the deliverables, a detailed capital plan that goes through the things I just talked about in a lot more detail, tells you how we go about the risk assessment project. It has details on all of the level of service items assessment that we went through, goes through what your minimum regulatory requirements are, and really shows you in great detail how we prioritize assets, because we're big on keeping things transparent and consistent so that it's very accountable to residents when people ask, why are you doing this project and not this one? And then also a continuous improvement program, which I'll close with. One of our big mandates with AIM Network is building capacity within the municipality. This short list here is all you need to do to keep things updated, so you never have to do a project like this again. You've done all of the hard work to get where you are, and with Alex helping out with the GIS, you're actually really set up in what is typically the hardest part, which is keeping your asset register up to date with new work that comes in. So you're well set to essentially, we hope, after we do some final training with your staff in June on using the tools, that you'll never have to call us again except for a friendly social call. So so I just wanted to thank you again for the opportunity to come out and do this presentation to you. You're always, if any, I'll open it up for questions now, but if you have any after this meeting, Victoria knows where to find me. We absolutely encourage people to get in touch and are always willing to have a conversation about the work.
Questions? I see a couple microphones lit up. Councillor Lauren Cushing, you have the floor.
Dude, you weren't live there for that one.
Since you shut it off, we'll go over to Deputy Warden. I'll come back to you. Deputy Warden?
Okay. A couple comments more than questions. I guess that would fall under discussion. Number one, just during the presentation, one of the slides did mention water. We do have water in the ground in the municipality, but it's the infrastructure for everybody's information is owned by the town of Yarmouth. So
yes.
That's why it comes up zero in the presentation. So, and lots of times folks ask me, are you going to extend the water and so forth? And over time, really that would be a decision of the town to work on their infrastructure. They may come to us for conversations about it, but that is a town infrastructure, and it is billed through the town, the water and all that type of thing. The other thing I will, you did bring up a point about those big ticket item shared assets that we share with the other two units, and units beyond that, some of the assets. Just a terrible situation here, as our warden spoke about earlier on, about the forest fires, but it does bring into sharp focus the utility of our airport, and that I'm not an engineer, but we've been talking about it quite a long time. That's going to need some attention, and I'm sure you've run the numbers on that, so this is a good piece of. This will be a good report for us to dive into with the other municipalities and federal and provincial governments to make sure that's there to lend a helping hand, that asset, when future emergencies arise. So those are my comments. Thank you. It would be excellent. And it's nice to see that that this group and the other councils have worked well together along with our staff to put us in the right situation to move forward in the future.
Okay, great.
Councillor, question?
Thank you, Mr. Ward, and I apologize for my slip of the tongue earlier. Asset management, my first term, I was able to, selected to be on with our municipality staff in developing this asset management that we have. As you mentioned, back in the 60s and the 70s, we were building everything, and it was going to last forever. But now we've got to the point now that what we build, we have to realize that one day it's going to have to be replaced or repaired and whatnot. So, yeah, it's an exciting program, and it's good to see that the municipality has some forward thinking and looking after our assets, which are very important. So, thank you for the presentation, and we're looking forward to continue on.
Thank you.
Any more? Seeing none, thank you very much. For me, asset management is not only building the asset, but taking care of the asset so it lasts as long as possible. And that's something that I'm glad to see the forward thinking, because long after I'm gone, because I'm not going to stay here another 20 years, I can guarantee you that. But farther on, we just want to make sure that the infrastructure is in as good a shape as possible, and to do spend a little now or a lot later is the motto that I have, and that is especially true with a lot of mechanical things out there, whether it be your car, your house, boat, whatever. Infrastructure is the same thing: water, sewer, buildings, electrical. A little now or a lot later. So, other than that, I see no more. Any questions from staff, comments from staff? Hearing none?
Could I just tack something on with your comments there?
Absolutely.
Because I'm really glad to hear you say that, and particularly with that point that you're making with those high risk, very expensive assets that are jointly managed. Operations and maintenance on those, yeah, a little now or a lot later absolutely fits with those. Like if you want to manage costs with those, that's your best approach. Excellent, awesome point.
Yeah, that's the mechanic coming out in you.
Yeah.
Well, that said, thank you very much for your presentation, and hopefully
Thank you.
we'll move forward with a lot of these recommendations looked at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Moving on, number 8, old business, 8.1, 2023-2024 budget. Greg's getting some water. Mr. Greg Shea, our financial officer, he's getting some water because he's probably going to say a lot more than I normally hear him talk. So Greg, you can turn on your microphone and, or sorry, hit the red button. I'll turn your microphone on.
Alrighty. Good evening, Mr. Warden and Council. I guess this evening, we're going to walk through quickly the operating budget for 23-24, hopefully seek some approvals, look at some of the higher-level expense and revenue categories that we've developed as part of our operation, the financial part of our operations plan for 23-24. So I have the agenda in front of me, and I guess I'm just going to walk through the way it's listed on the agenda, and then we'll look for motions for approval when it's appropriate. The first thing I have on the agenda is the rates, the various rates for the revenue rate categories for the year. And so this year, for 23-24, we're proposing to leave the residential and the resource rate the same at $1.18 per hundred of assessment. We're proposing to leave the commercial rate at $2.17 per 100 of assessment. The special assessment, which essentially is the sewer rate, is also unchanged at $89.60 per unit equivalent per quarter. The fire rates, there was one proposed change in the fire rates this year that's in F3, so I'll just list the rates. For the Carleton area, the rate is 11 cents. For Port Maitland, 14 cents. For the Yarmouth rate, we're proposing an increase of 1 cent from 16 to 17 cents. The Lakes and District rate, 17 cents. These are all per hundred of assessment. Lake Vaughan, 15 cents, and Valley and District at 8 cents.
Okay.
Kempt, yes, Kempt at 11 cents. Shall you approve those, or do we continue with the budget?
No, Deputy Warden?
Mr. Chair, be it resolved that the municipality district of Yarmouth approve the following rates for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Residential and resource tax rates at $1.18 per $100 of assessment. Commercial tax rate at $2.17 per $100 of assessment. And special assessment rate / sewer rate at $89.66 per unit equivalent per quarter.
A motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Nick Hilton. Is there any discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. I think we should do the fire rates next, since Greg's already gone through that. So is anyone? Councillor Sherry Hurlbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth approves the following fire rates for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Fire rate for Carleton at 11 cents per $100 of assessment. Fire rate for Port Maitland at 14 cents per $100 of assessment. Fire rate for Yarmouth at 17 cents per 100 of assessment. Fire rate for Lakes and District at 17 cents per 100 of assessment. Fire rate for Lake Vaughan at 15 cents per 100 of assessment. Fire rate for Valley and District at 8 cents per 100 of assessment. And the fire rate for Kemptville at 11 cents per 100 of assessment.
Motion on the floor by Councillor Sherry Hurlbert, seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Is there any discussion on that motion? One thing I will point out, except for the exception of area rate F3, which would be the town of the area covered by the town of Yarmouth Fire Department.
Yes.
People have a opportunity to go in and they have every individual fire department has their own ratepayers meetings. Usually happens in March or April. These were all numbers that were brought to us by the ratepayers meetings. So if there's no more discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 8.1.2, the draft operating budget. Greg?
Okay, thank you. So in this stage here, we'll just take a walk through the numbers by the categories for 23-24. I think these documents have been made available to you in your package, so you can follow me along if you want. or not. We'll start in the revenue section. So these are the budget numbers for our revenue categories for 23-24. So assessable property, the budget is $12,209,830. For special assessments, it's $290,322. For business property, it's $368,310. And for other taxes, it's $463,802. So the total revenue budgeted for the tax revenue category is $13,332,264,000. Grants in lieu, $34,000. Services to other governments, $525,125. We've budgeted total revenue from own sources of $1,249,103. Unconditional transfers from other governments, $153,528. Conditional transfers from other governments at $698,693, and we budgeted transfer from reserves of $1,757,000. So non-tax revenues come in at $4,417,449,000, and the total revenue budget for the operating year is $17,749,713. On the expenditure side, I'll just keep going until I hear a question. On the expenditure side, in general government services, we have legislative at $315,191, general administration at $1,219,325, financial management of $130,300, taxation is $346,153, other general government services is $369,713, so the total for the general government services category is $2,380,682. Protective services, RCMP and corrections is $1,427,720. Fire protection is $1,677,078. Emergency measures is $51,584. And other protective services is $467,777. And animal and pest control is $29,745. So total for the protective services category is $3,646,904. In transportation, road transport, $481,437. Street lighting, $73,556. Public works is $610,144. So the total transportation and public works is $1,165,137. Environmental health services, sewer collection and disposal, $1,328,477. That's the total for that category. And then in public health and welfare services, we have public health, $166,575. That's the total for that category, actually. Environmental development services, planning and policy, $106,017. Industrial parks, $89,280. And other environmental development services, $434,340. So the total in environmental development is $629,637. Recreation and culture is $933,760. In fiscal services, the debt services are $53,369, and principal payments are $1,700,000. Other funds are transfers to reserves. A transfer to the capital reserve fund is $2,046,400, and transfer to the operating reserve would be $320,000. So the total transfers to the reserves would be $2,366,400. Conditional transfers to other governments, and this includes education, $3,210,162, and then a contingency for unforeseen at the end of $25,000. So total fiscal services come in at $7,354,931. And your total expenditures that are budgeted for the year are $17,606,103.
Thank you very much for that, Greg. Is there any questions of Greg? If not, I need a motion to approve as presented. Moved by Councillor Nick Hilton to approve the draft operating budget as presented. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Is there any discussion on the motion on the floor? Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
I ask this every year, and Greg usually gives me a great answer, or gives us a great answer, on how much of what we have to spend is dictated by outside of our control.
Easily 60% of your operating budget is kind of provided to us by others in one way or another, one form or another.
Okay.
We're either a flow-through, or we just have to pay for services that are provided by others,
Okay.
such as policing is a prime example.
Right. And the other question, the increase in, let me find it here, just one second. The municipal office's salary, we look and we see that there is an increase from last year. Just outlining where, is that just additional salaries? Is it just because we have cost of living?
There's a COL increase, but it's also due to increase in staffing
Right.
from the accounting clerks. There's been certain turnover there. And our communications officer, and also, as you know, we're looking to fund a part-time position in the diversity, inclusion, and equity
Yep.
accessibility
Okay.
file.
I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nick Hilton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and some more directed at the last couple budget processes. There hasn't been anyone here but us, so it's nice that people are sitting in and experiencing with us what we have to go through. And I think it's important to know this is the one time of year that you really get that aha moment that you try to balance being a productive counselor with where the budget line comes in at the end of the year. And this year was extremely difficult because we know that the cost of living has increased. And all year you're never going to have to raise taxes, and you never want to raise taxes. And then when it comes down to it, the cost of everything for us went up as well. Inflation doesn't leave us out. So it was a really difficult process going through the budget process this year. If you look at the overall numbers, every one of them is up significantly. One that I noticed for my residents in my area is the F3 fire rate, which is up $500,000 due to renegotiation of that service agreement. Unfortunately, we were benefiting from it before. The town residents, it was costing town residents money for our service, and now we are not. So that was a really difficult one. You'll see that with other service agreements as we go forward. And I just want to say that it's been a difficult process this year, and I'm happy that we're able to keep the tax rate the same. But we did have to increase that fire rate for the residents in F3, but it doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you.
Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Yeah, just a brief note to point out, we discussed this in a previous council meeting. The principal on the long-term debt, we're repaying, paying off the loan on the administrative building here in the amount of 1.6 million. So that item is much, much higher than in the past, which is a good thing because we won't be paying interest on it anymore. So staff and council, I think, wisely chose when we voted to do that. So that's going to be helpful. That will save the taxpayers some interest charges on out in the future. So thank you for the process, and thank you to council and staff for engaging in the process.
Any other questions on the motion on the floor?
Could I speak before we complete
You sure
the
can.
conversation? Just thank you for the reminder on the debenture. That's right, the term was due for renewal, and there was a balloon payment that we could take advantage of this year to extinguish that liability and get it off the books. So that is a bit of an unusual expenditure in our budget this year of 1.6. The other thing I would like to add is a qualifier to my answer to Councillor Hurlbert's question around the increase in the salaries, not only in administration, but in all of them. I mentioned that there is a cost of living increase in there, and there is every year, but due to the extenuating circumstances around CPI and the cost of living increases over the last couple of years, this council decided to put a policy in place that capped the CPI, cost of living increase annually on salaries, to somewhat more reasonable number. So while the actual CPI increase in Nova Scotia for 2022 was 7.6%, our policy limited us to 3.5. So I think that's important to point out.
You answered the question that I was gonna ask
Oh, sorry.
about CPI. Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so just before the questions called on the motion, in addition to the other financial stewardship points that were raised, I think the asset management presentation tonight, in advance of the budget presentation, couldn't have been better context. The municipality of Yarmouth recognizes that residents require certain assets and services that we can't provide on our own, so we collaborate. And we provide an airport, we provide a port, we provide the Mariner Center, we provide a solid waste park, and the list goes on. And those are big-ticket, expensive items. And by positioning the District of Yarmouth in the way it is financially on its own assets, we're better prepared to be able to live up to our responsibilities on those big-ticket regional assets. For example, the $3.8 million contribution to the expansion on the Mariner Center. The municipality can afford to do that because it's managing the items that it's under its own complete control in this manner, recognizing that those larger items are important to residents as well. And so without those decisions by council happening the way they are, we could be in positions where we'd be making difficult decisions. And so I congratulate council on their financial stewardship.
Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 8.1.3, the draft capital investment plan.
Yes, the draft capital investment plan. So Matt's asset management was a great segue into this piece. So you have it in front of you again, I believe, as part of your package. I'm not going to go through it line by line unless that's what you want to do. But essentially, our capital investment plan for 23-24 amounts to $2,767,999.
Deputy Warden.
I'll move that we approve the draft capital investment plan is circulated.
Okay, a motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Is there any discussion on that motion on the floor? Hearing none. All of those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 8.1.4, confirmation of municipal grant.
Again, the commission took the municipal grants through the granting process. That exercise has been carried out by council, and they've made their decisions. You have a list in your package of the categories of grants that are tourism, regular grants, placemaking, and a contingency. And the total amount that was allowed in the budget this year for the grants is $146,011.
Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Just before I make the motion to approve the grants, just to comment that the $146,000 change figure represents a little less than 1% of our budget. But it is one area that we do have 100% control. So that's 1% of the 40%, I guess, according to Greg's figures. So in any event, some very, very great, lot of great grants, and a lot of them are leveraged dollars, so they've got dollars from other places or fundraising, and they're all really, really important community activities and represent the efforts of a lot of volunteers. So having said all that, I'll move that the municipality of District of Yarmouth approve the grants is circulated.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Sherry Hurlbert. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Hurlbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just echoing Deputy Warden Cunningham's comments, this is the one area that we have complete say over like the 40%, it's 1% of our budget. And when you look at this, you know, it shows how many good things are happening in our community by hundreds of volunteers. And when we go through this process, we don't have a dollar amount in mind. We just kind of do it. We know what people have asked, we know what they asked for last year, we know where they're getting their funding from, and, you know, we don't have a set amount. We don't say we have $40,000. So at the end, you know, regular request is, you know, it's almost $100,000. So I think, you know, for us, for me, it's, you know, one of the, although it doesn't come without its stresses, as you around the table will know, that sometimes this does stress me out a little, because I wish I could give like the full ask to everyone, and we can't. But, you know, to know at the end of the day that we can give that out. And I do want to point out there are some, so 5.1.2, Brazil Lake Wesleyan Church asked for 5,000, and it shows 0 in the top part, but down below, under placemaking, they actually qualify for 2,500. So if you just, so anybody, you know, who is watching or will watch this recording, you know, if you just look through these, some of those fall under placemaking, which is new for us, and so we just kind of move some things around because it fit better there than above. So I think that, you know, like I said, it shows the amazing amount of work that our volunteers and our community are doing, and just a small amount that we can give back to them to let them continue their work. So thank you to all of us and all of them.
One more thing I'd like to mention too, one of the big themes this year for our grant requests seem to be food security. Different groups reaching out to help our friends and neighbors. That's something that was big. Every year there seems to be a little bit different theme, but lately over the past few years, food security seems to be something that's more and more prevalent, and there was a lot of asks this year for groups and stuff like that. And yeah, it's always a hard process. This is something that we do have a lot of control. We've had more requests this year than we've had in any other that I can remember in my 14 years sitting around council tables. So it's always difficult decisions to make. But I think we found a good balance in this. So if there's no more, Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I also want to point out that there are some organizations that we aren't sure of certain points, and so we're asking them to come and do a presentation so we can have a better understanding of what their organizations are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's no more discussion on the motion on the floor, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Well, Greg, thank you very much. As always, it's a difficult year, and thank you very much for your cool, calm, and collected discussions and debates about different things on the budget over the years. It's certainly, every year, it's challenging, especially with, I'm glad we got the budgets pretty well over before we had problems with the fire, and I'd like to thank you personally for making sure that our airport is running smoothly as the acting general manager with all the air flights and traffic and stuff that's been happening out there. So I wanted to put a personal thank you to that.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you, and I appreciate your continued confidence.
All right, well, thank you very much. Moving on to item 8.2, Clean Nova Scotia Foundation Agreement. Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the agreement that's before you is attached to our PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, which is the program whereby homeowners can borrow $10,000 to do energy upgrades to their homes. And we don't administer that program internally. We do that through the Clean Foundation, and every year we just have to renew the agreement with them. It's the same agreement we've had in place since you adopted the bylaw. So I'm just looking for a motion to be directed to sign again.
Councillor Patty Durkee.
I'll make a motion that we approve the clean energy agreement as presented.
A motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Discussion on that? I do have a question. How many years has it been that this program's been in effect?
2018 was the year you approved the bylaw, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Councillor Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And with things, as things are going a little bit greener as we're moving forward, I'm wondering if there's a way that maybe staff, through you to Madam CEO, if we could advertise that this program is out there, because I'm not really sure how many people know that we offer this part. I know our well program is out there, and people know about that, but I'm not sure how many people know about the PACE program.
So we do post about it on a regular cycle. I don't know what that cycle looks like. It's been featured in the newsletter more than once, and we actually have had better uptake this year on the program than in all the years leading up to it. A new application just came in recently. I think the solar program has been more advantageous for some people than others. One of the important criteria in the program is that when the energy audit is performed on the home, that's being considered for the program, the energy savings have to result in what we call a 1-to-1 ratio. So for every dollar invested in the energy upgrades, there has to be a dollar saving in energy costs. So it can be difficult for some people to meet that threshold. But yes, absolutely, it's on Marissa's radar, and we will continue to promote that program and get as many people taking advantage of it as possible.
Okay, thank you.
I can't remember if there was a motion made. Yeah, there was, that's right. I had something else on my mind all of a sudden, and it just went blank, which is quite easy for me lately. All right, is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. No, the reason why my mind went blank is I was thinking about the meeting in the Carlton Fire Hall. That I'm missing, so. All right, item number 9, new business, 9.1, the recommendations from the last committee of the whole, 9.1.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, you missed item 8.3.
8.3.
On page 1, item 8.3, right there.
Oh, item 8.3, fire services contract. Speak of the devil. Madam CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in your package this evening, Council, is the final draft of the fire services agreement as approved by Council, and it's before you tonight for ratification and direction to sign. Oh, it's not connected, but you had it, yeah, yep. But you did see it last week, yep. It's not on my online agenda, I don't think. Yeah.
Councillor Hilton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So assuming it's exactly the same as the last copy that we've seen,
I think Jenny's probably going to refresh for you just so you can double check right quick. We could move on, Mr. Chair, and come back to that one.
See, there's a reason why I missed that. All right, just notify me when that gets refreshed, and we'll come back.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to item 9.1, recommendations from the Committee of the Whole. 9.1.1, the AMAM's municipal sponsorship for the fall convention. You'll have that in your package. That was a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole. What is council's wishes? Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
I'll make a motion that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth contribute $1,820.14 to sponsor the AMAN's Fall Conference.
The motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.1.2, task force from the Yarmouth International Airport. Councillor, seems to be a problem even with my thing today. Councillor Nick Hilton, you have the floor.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that the municipality and District of Yarmouth support the Yarmouth International Airport Corporation's initiative to form a task force to seek stable financial support from both the province and the federal government.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Patty Durkee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think our timing of this motion couldn't be better, considering what's happening right now at our airport. Can you imagine if we didn't have that airport, how difficult it would be for the air services that are required to fight the fires? And I just think this is something moving forward that we really have to stabilize, and our airport needs to be better utilized in future.
Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Yes, and obviously, I agree with everything that Councillor Durkee just said. The timing is fortuitous. Although we've got an emergency, it does point out how important the airport is for the whole region, beyond even the three units that own it. What I will say is that I think that we should make sure that we work, as we've talked about in previous meetings, with the town and the municipality of Argyle to get our agreement updated. I think that needs to be a priority piece, and we should perhaps, I'm sure the three CEOs will be talking about getting that agreement in place for all of us to sign, because obviously it's going to be tough to seek federal and provincial, or a little bit tougher to seek federal and provincial support there in righting the ship, so to speak, at the airport, and getting the infrastructure the way it needs to be without having that agreement renewed. So in the event, those are my comments.
Yeah, Councillor Hilton. No, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I noticed your name's on the bottom of the letter, and I thank you for the work that you're putting in on that committee. It is times like this, it's funny that it's budget day, because we are paying the deficit that's associated with keeping that airport open, and every time we have a discussion, it's like, what can we do to get rid of that deficit? But then days like today, where it's at full use for a minimal, not a minimal, but a reasonable ask, I think our deficit's somewhere around $250,000. So I'm excited to see what that task force will pull together, and see if we can make some significant upgrades there and maybe bring some business back to town.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, you never know you need something until it's needed. And the past events here that's going on with the forest fires have certainly highlighted that. And there's also been other emergencies in the area, like rescues offshore, search and rescue, medevac life flights, business opportunities that fly in and out on private jets. There's actually a lot of activity that goes on there, and thankfully we have a very energetic board that wants to take on this to find different funding formulas. There's been a lot of talk about access to getting funding and making the case to the feds and province and also the private sector to help us improve our airport. And also there'll be I do believe there'll be some talks coming up with other municipal partners across the province. So, yeah, I'm very proud to be part of that board. And if you all remember here, a few years back, that the board had a mandate to right size and streamline the airport and search for fundings. But so since we have the board up and running and they're very aggressive, they took it upon themselves to recommend this to all councils, and I think it's a win-win situation. And unfortunately, the events in Shelburne, which I previously mentioned, showed the need for the airport. There's been a lot of air traffic there over the past 4 or 5 days. So, if there's no more discussion on the motion on the floor, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
If council could refresh their...
Motion carried. So council could refresh your browsers. You should be able to, we should be able to go back to item 8.3. I do have it up. Okay, we'll move back to item 8.3, which I previously looked over, went back to, and then skipped over again. So item 8.3, the fire services contract. What is the pleasure of council? Councillor Nick Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and unfortunately, there isn't enough refresh available to take the sting out of the cost of this new contract, but unfortunately, it's a necessary requirement. Through you to the CAO, what would the motion look like to accept the contract?
The motion would be to approve the warden and the CAO signing the contract.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councillor Nick Hilton. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Discussion? Deputy Warden.
While none of us were enthused to see the increase in cost, just a little bit of history about this. There was an agreement in place previously, and this is a contract for service. It's not an intermunicipal agreement. Our CEO talked about that a few meetings ago. So it's a little different than most. Like, we're engaged in an intermunicipal agreement, like on the Mariner Center. This is a contract for services. So the contract does lay out how each of the partners, whether it's a service provider in the town or us, could void the contract over, all those pieces are in there. But having said that, fire service is a pretty important thing, and we didn't really have a firm contract in there, so, and the town's been a good partner. I mean, that's not to say they haven't on this over the years, but having said that, it's always good to have a contract in place when you need a service, because obviously otherwise, without a contract, you don't really have a clear understanding of what service is being provided and what we're paying for. So all those pieces are there. So that's the positive side. The not so positive side is, of course, it's cost a considerable amount more to do. But perhaps our CEO could comment a little bit more about that in that vein.
CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I think that the roles and responsibilities are spelt out when you're purchasing a service that is under a contract framework, especially something that's as complicated and expensive as fire service. So the contract specifies the geography where the service will be delivered. It specifies how the service will be paid for and the cost will be shared between the municipality and the town. And it's basically based on the metrics associated with the service. So fire service is designed to protect people and property. So we look at the people and the property that's being protected, and we look for metrics that are there's a high level of confidence in the validity of them. So we work with a third party to get the metrics on the assessed value of the property that's being protected, the number of dwelling units, as well as the calls for service. So all of that information comes from third parties. It's verifiable. And so we basically are sharing the total cost of the service based on our ratio of dwelling units, assessment, and calls. And that's the most fair way to approach sharing the cost. We're also in an advantageous position because the town of Yarmouth actually has a professional paid fire service as well as a volunteer fire service. And by partnering with the town to make that investment, it creates a level of service, which you heard a little bit about tonight in asset management, in the region and in the tri-counties, which would not be there in terms of equipment and trained professional personnel that otherwise we wouldn't have in the region. So while it does come at a cost, there's no question, it also adds tremendous value to the community.
Absolutely, and I'd like to add to that a little bit in regards to tremendous value to the community. It costs a lot to protect our homes and stuff from fire, as we all seen, unfortunately, happen across our province. Before, it was only a handshake agreement. This year, it's written down, finally, after all the years that I can remember. I think since 1999, it was a handshake agreement. And at least in this agreement, there is responsibilities of the provider, and it does say in here 3.01, that the town warrants it has and will continue to have during the life of the agreement sufficient resources and sufficient number of firefighters necessary to provide the fire service. That right there is worth its weight in gold. There's things like that that were just a given, but unfortunately, with this day and age, the handshake agreements don't pass muster anymore, and it's good to see us work with the town to get this agreement down. We never like to pay any more money, but yeah, this agreement has been needed for as long as that I can been sitting on council, so. Councilor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to staff for the work that you've done to get us to this place tonight. And you, Madam CAO did outline how the formula, was the decision and how we were going to figure out how much we were going to pay, so it wasn't just a random number, it's a third, a third, a third. So, as she said, taxable assessment, a third total residential units, and a third of the calls for service in each municipality. And I just want to clarify that on page 6, I think it's page 6, where we talk about the dispute resolution, those business days were added in there, correct? So 10 business days in B, and then 10 business days in, there was another one, D, I think, yes. So if there's any dispute, those are clearly outlined as well. So thank you very much.
Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, council, and thank you, staff, and thank you, the town of Yarmouth, for all the hard work that you've done to get this agreement in place. Okay, moving back to new business recommendations from the Committee of the Whole. Item 9.1.3, food security. Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth hold in the amount of $1,500 from the 2023-2024 budget until a decision can be made on how to best support food security needs in the municipality.
Motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. Any discussion on that? Councillor Hurlbert, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to staff. My original motion was, for staff to come up with some ideas on how we could host a meal and support our community, and they did come back with, some great options, but when we were going through our grant process, it was pointed out that, and it was evident that there were a lot of asks around food security, so we've kind of just put a pause on this for a bit. We know that there's money there, we know there's work to be done, but we just have to have some time to figure out how we're going to work through that, so thank you.
Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.1.4, Lake Milo subdivision and public works and transportation. Submission. No, I don't see submission there.
Yes, submission, not subdivision. Subdivision. We're not talking subdivisions here.
Yeah. My mind seems to be everywhere but here right now. Deputy
They
Warden.
can pave the subdivision if they wish as well.
Oh,
Absolutely. So I'll,
There needs to be clarity.
so I will move that Municipality of District of Yarmouth direct the CAO to submit the Lake Milo Active Transportation Master Plan project to the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works Area Manager for nomination to their capital planning process.
motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.1.5, summer meeting dates. You all have that in your package? What is the wishes of council? Councillor Patty Durkee.
We're all looking at each other to press our buttons. Not that there's anything controversial about this, because there isn't. I'm going to make a motion that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth hold their July and August 2023 meetings on Wednesday, July 19th, 2023, and Wednesday, August 19th, 2023, both beginning at 6 p.m.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I maybe ask that normally our appointments in our calendar only get put in a couple of weeks in advance, but is there any way we can have those kind of put in sooner rather than later, so when we're planning and looking at our calendars, we know where we need to be on those days?
Absolutely.
Please and thank you. Thank you.
The only thing that I'll mention is the reason for these date changes during the summer, which has happened as long as I've been on council, is because, number one, give the opportunity staff to schedule their vacations. Number two, councilors the opportunity to be out and about in their community, what I like to call barbecue season, and also volunteer our time with different things that's going on and attend different events, because there's a lot going on this summer. And it's not abnormal that we do this. So is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Madam CEO?
I guess I should just clarify that what this means is that there will not be committee of the whole meetings on those months. So normally council meets on the second Thursday for committee of the whole. That meeting will be canceled. And so this meeting, council will conduct all of their business for the month in each of the 2 months, July and August, at this one meeting time. So presentations will happen on those days.
Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.1.6, request for decision, the municipality is this District of Yarmouth website. Councillor Daniel Allen.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that council approve the moving of the municipality's website platform to the AMA website venture for the amount of $3,000 per year for 3 years, plus $500 for the customization feature.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.1.7, request for decision, domain name. Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
Yeah, I'll move that the municipality district of Yarmouth change the municipality's domain name from district.yarmouth.ns.ca to mun.yarmouth.ca.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Any discussion on that motion on the floor? Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the committee of the whole meeting on May the 11th. So I just have a quick question in terms of how we arrived at MUN Yarmouth as opposed to modi.ca or modi.net or modi something.
All of the Modi dots have already been purchased, and we're not able to identify who owns them.
Thank you.
We were equally disappointed, Councillor Durkee.
I don't know, MUN Yarmouth?
Yeah, but one thing that was brought up too that I can remember is also if you look at the municipality of Argyle, it's MUN Argyle. Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At Committee of the Whole, I voted against changing it because I feel like district.yarmouth.ns.ca, however hard that is when I was away at a conference and I just given out my business cards because it's easier to just type in, or just easier to give it to them than to type in that. So MUN Yarmouth, and I know I voted against it last time, but I think, you know, I've looked at it and MUN Yarmouth is better than, after telling people for the last 5 days what my email address was, district.yarmouth.in, yeah, I'm going to vote for it this time. Although not great, I think better than what we've had.
Yeah, it would have been a lot preferable to get Modi. No question at all, but unfortunately, that option wasn't available. Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none? I do have one question, though, before I call for the vote. In regards to the changeover, how long will district.yarmouth.ns.ca work?
Until Mike tells us it won't anymore. You can be assured that there will be lots of notice around that, and there will probably be widgets in place for a period of time so that if something comes into that domain, it will forward for a certain amount of time.
It will work forever.
There you go. For those of you watching online, our cameraman behind the scenes, that's Mike, our IT guy. He says it could work forever. Yep.
Okay, so just at a snap of the fingers, if someone tries to email me once it gets changed, like say tonight, by Mike hits a magic button
Oh,
on his
no.
computer.
Oh, no, no, no,
It just
no,
all of a sudden,
right.
bang, all of a sudden we
No.
have no access to emails and stuff. I know that's not what happens, but some people may very well think.
And even if that was the case, we would have an auto reply message that would provide redirecting information.
Okay, Councillor Hurlbert?
One more thing, in the recommendation here, it says to munyarmouth.ca dot, and that dot is just the period at the end of the sentence, not what the domain name will be.
Correct.
Right.
Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.1.8,
There's one more motion to go with that, Mr. Chair.
there was two?
Yep, it's to go to to choose the
Oh.
platform.
Okay, is there any more motions on that item? Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
I'll move that the municipality district of Yarmouth add the domain name munyarmouth.ca to the existing Office 365 program.
Motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Any discussion on that? Hearing none? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.1.8, request for a decision, the Lake Vaughan Volunteer Fire Department. What is the pleasure of council? Councillor Patty Durkee.
I'll make a motion that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth lend up to $250,000 to the Lake Vaughan Volunteer Fire Department per the terms and conditions of Volunteer Emergency Service Providers Capital Loan Policy V-108-19.
Okay, a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Sherry Hurlbert. Any discussion on that motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.1.9, that was in addition to the agenda that I had asked for, and in its regards to the Perrenbaugh graduation in Tusket at 7 p.m. Wednesday, June the 28th. Unfortunately, I cannot attend that graduation ceremony. I have a prior commitment that day. I'm just wondering if any councillor would like to attend on the municipality districts of Yarmouth's behalf. The date would be Wednesday, June 28th at 7 p.m. Okay, so could you notify me, Mark Lynn, about that, or? Turn on your mic, please. Go ahead.
June 28th, and forgive me for never remembering if it's the last Wednesday or the fourth Wednesday. Is that not council? That is. That's council.
I never thought of that.
Oh, yeah.
It is council.
Yeah, that
It's
is
the
council.
fourth and the last.
But it's not unusual to, for a councillor, warden, or deputy warden to miss a council meeting to attend an event like that, so.
I think you need to know what's on the agenda first.
I can't attend. I cannot. No,
So we can work it out.
we can work it out.
Yeah, but, Mr. Chair, given that it is a council meeting, I don't think I'd probably attend. Yeah,
We could easily send, if no one's available for that, we can send our regrets.
I think that's what we
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted that on the agenda to make that clear. So what I'll do is I'll notify Mark Blinn, he was the one that had recently, or had sent out the request to me, and I said I couldn't make that date. So I guess I'm really gonna have to rush to get to that council meeting at 7 then. At 6.
So you really have to rush.
Maybe you should move the council meeting again.
Not right now. Not right now. All right, thank you, council. Item 9.2, recommendations from the Planning Advisory Committee. 9.2.1, clarification for terminology on short-term rentals, FYI. Madam CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't take a lot of time on this. So there is a document in your package that was sent to council from the Planning Advisory Committee. You had asked them to take a look at the new framework around short-term rentals with respect to the provincial registry and the requirement that short-term rentals be compliant with municipal planning strategies and land use bylaws. So this is just confirmation for you that with respect to that, the municipality of Yarmouth, current MPS and LUB, the short-term rentals are compliant, and in the new framework, it's going to accommodate those. So we should be in good shape, and we shouldn't see industry experience any challenges around that.
Councillor Patty Durkee.
I just want to say thank you very much to our CAO and team for looking after that and making sure that we're on a good plan for the future. Thank you.
No more discussion on that? Okay, moving on. Item 9.3, applications under policy R-022-03. I do believe that's fire damage. Applications for tax reduction. Item 9.3.1, file number AAN 4152425. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that assessment account number experienced a loss due to fire. The capped assessed value before the fire was $94,003. The post-fire value is $30,100. And so in your package is a recommendation for a reduction in taxes in the amount of $452.19.
Councillor Hurlbert.
So moved.
Motion on the floor, do I have a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham. Any discussion on that?
I shouldn't have laughed. It wasn't the laugh that there was a loss due to fire. It was a laugh because I wasn't 100% sure on how to word the motion, so that got us where we needed to be.
Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 9.3.2, file number AAN 1123955.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this assessment account number had a pre-fire value of $355,000 and a post-fire value of $73,100. So the reduction due to fire and taxes is $2,006.58.
Deputy Warden Trevor Cunningham.
So I'll move that the municipality district of Yarmouth reduce the taxes on ANN 1123955 in the amount of $2,006.58 for the reasons outlined by the CEO.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Discussion on the motion? None? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item number 10, the correspondence for action, 10.1, 10.1.1. NSEMO Region 3 point of contact after May 25th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in your package, council, is email correspondence to me from a gentleman by the name of Andrew Mitten, who was the District of Yarmouth's Emergency Management Preparedness Officer with the Nova Scotia Emergency Management Office in the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Mr. Minton is moving on to another opportunity, and after May 25th, he is no longer working in Region 3, which would be everything. It's Annapolis, Kings, Digby, Yarmouth, Shelburne, Queens, and Lunenburg County was his region, and he's moved on. I submit this to you as a piece of correspondence for action because in other parts of Nova Scotia, when people in the same position for other regions in Nova Scotia have moved on, it does not appear as though the positions have been filled. And so I am recommending to council tonight that correspondence go to Minister Lohr indicating that we're grateful for the support that we've received in the past and encouraging his office to appoint a replacement in this position as soon as practically possible.
Councillor Nick Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam CEO. I agree, Andrew's been a great resource in me learning to be the chair of the local REMO, and I will support that and make that a motion as described by yourself.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Daniel Allen. Discussion? Hearing none. I think it's very important that this contact is filled, especially with all the light of all the events that's happened around here recently. So as soon as we can get that, or as soon as that Minister Lohr would fill that, it would be advantageous to the region, that's for sure. Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
So once that letter is sent, or in addition to that letter being sent, are there other agencies, municipal partner, or our provincial partners that we should be copying on that and not just? So should we be sending it to Zach and Colton? Is that necessary, not necessary?
I would definitely encourage you to carbon copy our MLA, Zach Churchill for short, and it would be maybe a good idea to carbon copy the municipalities in our region so that they know we've sent the letter, because they're in the same boat we are. They don't have that position to support them in the work.
Okay, so can we,
You can make an amendment to the main motion.
I'll make that amendment.
So you make an amendment to the main motion to write our MLA and the
CC.
to CC our MLA and
Our partners.
other partners.
Yes, please.
Okay, motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by the deputy warden. Okay, any discussion on the amendment on the main motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Now back to the main motion. Any more discussion on the main motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 10.2, there is no correspondence for information. Item number 11, reports. Warden's report. Well, I will have to say that I did this really quick. I've been quite busy with the fire situation and making sure that different departments had what they need. I was actually doing some extra time repairing equipment to make sure that it was up and running just in case that we needed to be called out. Other than that, YCon is happening this year at the Grand from the 2nd to the 4th. There was a planned event between myself, Councillor Nick Hilton, Councillor Wade Cleveland, and the MLA Colton LeBlanc from Argyle. Unfortunately, that's been canceled. It was thought by the organizing committee that that event should be postponed until next year due to the light of the fact that what's going on down in Shelburne County and municipality Argyle, that the fires that in case we were needed, that our services could be done more this year. But I encourage everyone to get out to there. Malcolm is certainly put forward a great event. Hopefully there's going to be rain Saturday, so I'll be able to get out Saturday. There's a lot going on this summer, as we all know. I don't know of any more that anyone wants to talk about. There's also a review of the Royal Canadian Sea Cadets 92, Chabot, and I believe it's the Army Cadets as well, having their annual general review coming up this Sunday. I do believe the Deputy Warden also mentioned that he's going to that as well. That's going on, coming up a week tomorrow. The Cenotafh's 100th anniversary is coming up. I encourage everyone that can make it out there, go out there. The ceremonies start at 11 o'clock. I plan to be there along with some of you. But those are just a few of the things that are going on. Things are starting to come fast and furious. And as we know, if I can attend, I'll certainly put a shout out to any one of you to attend on my behalf. And unfortunately, we can't all be everywhere at the same at some time, so I certainly appreciate council support during the summer months when there's multiple events going on the same day that you're able to attend on behalf of council. So that's my report. Item 11.2, legal entities. You have everything from the Mariner Center to Western Regional Enterprise Network. There's written reports. Does anyone wish to do a verbal? Councillor Patty Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 11.2.6, Yarmouth and Acadian Shores Tourism Association. Just to let you know, we were supposed to have our AGM today, but unfortunately, due to one of our partners being called out, we couldn't get a quorum, and they were called out due to the fire. So we'll be rescheduling that soon, and the outlook for the season is great.
Councillor Daniel Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mariner Center Management Authority, we had a meeting today. The budget has finally been approved. It's been a process where we have switched from using the town as to manage the finances to going in-house. But finally today, there was approval. Can't wait for you to see the numbers. They have had a busy year between Mariners on Main and Mariner Center last year. So just looking forward to us getting that and having a chance to look at it.
Councillor Nick Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 11.2.1 Mariner Center Expansion Board had a meeting last week to review two proposals to kind of pick which one that we wanted to take out to get a price on. We should know in the next 2 weeks what we're looking at for an estimated budget, and then we'll be able to make some harder decisions about what the facility is going to look like long term. And I know that they're in the process of appointing the volunteer or evaluating the applications for the volunteer position on that board as well. So slowly coming together. The price will really dictate what the expansion, what possibilities we have, and how far $30 million goes in the current economy. Unfortunately, probably not far enough, but we'll have that discussion after, and I'll bring that back to you guys.
Thank you. Any more reports under legal entities? Hearing none. Item 11.3, advisory committees. There's some written reports. Any verbal reports? Seeing none. Ad hoc. Oh, sorry, I missed you. Go ahead, Councillor Nick Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just touching base with Remo again. Prior to the fire, Shane and Max have been doing renovations of the building. For those of you that are like me that didn't know that the Coordination Center for Emergency Management is located right behind the fire hall in town. Yeah, who knew? Anyway, they've done significant painting and upgrades technology-wise as well to the building, which unfortunately became very useful this week as they moved or upgraded. Madam CEO, what's the term? They opened?
It's the Emergency Coordination Center, and we're at level 2, which is the monitoring level. We're operating 7 days a week, 12 hours a day.
So I did have a, thank you. I did have a chance to stop by when we returned from Toronto. They're doing a wonderful job and the place looks fantastic. So we have really good staff hired within that organization, and they're really looking out for us, and they're on their game. So thank you.
Okay, any more advisory reports? 11.4, ad hoc. Only one there is fence arbitration. No jokes at all. Okay, item number 12, in camera. We have 2 in-camera agenda items for potential litigation under MGA 22-2, paragraph F, and the other one, public safety. So I need a motion to go into camera. Moved by Councillor Allen, have a seconder, seconded by Councillor Patty Durkee. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.